My name is Sophia Miller, and if someone had told me a year ago that my 10-year marriage would collapse in the most humiliating way, I would have laughed. I thought I had the perfect life. A beautiful home, two amazing kids, and a husband who, to everyone else, looked like the perfect family man. But the truth behind the walls of our house was far more complicated. It all started with little changes in Ethan Miller. That's my husband, Ethan. For years, he was attentive, warm, and supportive. But around the time he got promoted to vice president at his company, something shifted. He became distant, glued to his phone, and often too tired to talk to me at night. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself, he's just stressed, Sophia. This is what happens when men climb the corporate ladder. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The way he avoided eye contact during dinner, the way he snapped at me for the smallest things, the way he suddenly cared too much about his appearance before work. It was all pointing to something I didn't want to face. Still, I kept quiet. I cooked his favorite meals. I smiled when I didn't feel like smiling, and I prayed things would return to normal. But then, it happened. One Tuesday evening, I was folding laundry in the living room when Ethan walked in with a brown envelope in his hand. His face was cold, expressionless. Without a word, he tossed the envelope onto the coffee table in front of me. "What's this?" I asked, laughing nervously, because I already sensed it wasn't good. "Read it," he said flatly. His voice had no warmth, no hesitation. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. My eyes scanned the words, and my heart stopped. "Divorce papers." "Ethan, what is this?" My voice cracked. "It's exactly what it looks like," he replied, crossing his arms. "I want a divorce." I felt like the ground beneath me collapsed. Divorce? Just like that. After 10 years of marriage, 2 children, and countless promises of forever, I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened. "Why?" "Ethan, talk to me. What happened? Did I do something?" "Did I?" "This isn't working anymore, Sophia," he interrupted sharply. "I'm done pretending." My tears spilled over. "Pretending? What do you mean pretending? We're a family, Ethan. We have kids. You can't just— I don't love you anymore," he snapped, his jaw clenched. "And I want out. Sign the papers." Those words pierced me like a knife. I don't love you anymore. How could he say that so easily, like our years together meant nothing? I tried to reason with him, my voice trembling. "Ethan, please. At least tell me the real reason. Is there someone else?" For a split second, I caught the flicker in his eyes, the kind of flicker a liar gives when the truth is dangerously close. But he shook his head. "No. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab those papers and tear them into a million pieces. Instead, I sat there, frozen, watching as the man I loved, the father of my children, stared at me like I was a stranger. "I'm not signing anything," I whispered finally. "You can't just force me into this." He leaned closer, his voice low and menacing. "Oh, I can. And I will. You'll sign, Sophia. One way or another." That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I couldn't anymore. Every memory, every kiss, every promise replayed in my head like a cruel joke. How did we get here? How could he betray me like this? But beneath the heartbreak, something else began to grow inside me. A spark. A tiny flame of anger, of defiance. Ethan thought he could break me with divorce papers. He thought I'd crumble and beg. But he was wrong. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my face pale. But there was a new determination in me. If he wants a war, I'll give him one. But on my terms. I started paying attention, really paying attention. His late nights at the office, his constant phone calls in the other room, the sudden smell of expensive cologne that wasn't his usual scent. And then there were the excuses. So many excuses. Working late, important client dinner, emergency meeting. Each excuse was a dagger to my chest. But I forced myself to play along, to act naive. Because if Ethan was hiding something, and deep down, I knew he was, I was going to find out. One evening, after he left for another so-called meeting, I made a choice. I grabbed my car keys, my heart pounding, and followed him. I stayed a few cars behind, my palms sweating as I prayed he wouldn't notice me. He drove across town, away from his office, to a fancy Italian restaurant. I parked at a distance and watched. And then, I saw her. A woman. Young, stunning, dressed in a tight red dress. She walked right up to him, and without hesitation, Ethan leaned in and kissed her. My world shattered. My suspicions were true. He wasn't just leaving me, he had already replaced me. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My husband, the man who forced divorce papers into my hands, was living a double life, and I had the proof. But instead of bursting in and creating a scene, I sat there in silence, my tears falling freely, because in that moment, I knew something he didn't. He thought I was powerless, weak, broken. But now I had the truth, and the truth would be my weapon. I drove home that night with my heart torn apart, but with a fire inside me I never felt before. He wanted me to sign those divorce papers quietly. He wanted to discard me like yesterday's trash. But he had no idea what I was capable of. And as I crawled into bed alone, one thought consumed me. If Ethan wants a divorce, I'll give him one. But on my terms. And he'll regret ever underestimating me. That was the night I made my decision. I wasn't just going to survive Ethan's betrayal. I was going to make sure he paid for it. And my next move would leave him absolutely stunned. The morning after I saw Ethan with that woman, I woke up with swollen eyes but a razor-sharp mind. Betrayal had a strange effect on me. It broke me and built me all at once. For years, I had lived as the supportive wife, the one who smoothed his ties, packed his lunches, raised his kids, and kept the household afloat. But now I was something else. I wasn't going to be the woman who cried in a corner while her husband paraded around with another woman. No. If Ethan wanted a war, then a war he would get. But first, I had to be smart. I couldn't just confront him with what I saw. Men like Ethan were slippery. He'd twist the truth, call me paranoid, gaslight me until I started doubting my own eyes. No, I needed proof. Undeniable, cold, hard proof. So I started gathering it. Whenever Ethan worked late, I noted the times, the dates. I checked credit card bills for restaurant charges, hotel bookings, or sudden splurges that didn't make sense. I quietly installed a small tracking app on his phone one afternoon while he showered. My hands trembled as I did it, but my determination was stronger than my fear. Days turned into weeks, and the pieces started coming together. He wasn't even careful. He had dinners at the same Italian restaurant. Hotel receipts popped up under business expenses. The tracking app showed late-night trips to a luxury apartment complex across town. And then there were the texts. I wasn't proud of it. But one night, when Ethan fell asleep with his phone on the nightstand, I carefully unlocked it. The messages made my stomach twist. Her name was Lily. I can't wait until she's out of the picture. You deserve better, Ethan. With me, you'll have real happiness. When is she finally signing the papers? And Ethan's replies cut deeper than any knife. She's being difficult, but don't worry. I'll handle her. Soon, Lily. Very soon. I'm done with Sophia. You're my future now. I wanted to scream, to shake him awake and throw those messages in his face. But I didn't, because in that moment, I realized something important. Ethan thought he had the upper hand. He thought I was clueless, weak, and broken. But I wasn't. I had patience, and I had a plan. The first step was simple. Don't let him see me break. So when he strutted around the house, throwing snide remarks about me dragging my feet with the divorce papers, I smiled calmly. Don't worry, Ethan. I'd say, my voice smooth. I'm just taking my time. You can't rush something like this. He hated that. I could see it in his clenched jaw, the way his nostrils flared. He wanted me to fight, to scream, to give him an excuse to paint me as unstable. But I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Instead, I played the role of the patient, compliant wife, all while quietly building my arsenal. One evening, I visited a lawyer, Mr. Harris, a sharp, no-nonsense man in his 50s. I laid everything out, the affair, the texts, the hotel receipts. His eyes narrowed as he read through the evidence. Sophia, he said firmly, your husband isn't just asking for a divorce. He's trying to strip you of your dignity while he runs around with his mistress. But with this evidence, You hold the power here. You can file first, on grounds of adultery. That changes everything." Hearing those words gave me strength. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't drowning. "Don't tell him you've been here," Mr. Harris advised. "Let him believe he's in control. When the time is right, we'll serve him with papers he never saw coming." I nodded, a grim smile forming on my lips. Yes, I thought, let him enjoy his little fantasy world with Lily. Soon, reality will slap him harder than he ever imagined. But keeping my calm at home wasn't easy. Ethan grew bolder, crueler. One night, he came home late, reeking of alcohol and perfume. He tossed his jacket onto the couch and sneered at me. "Still haven't signed them, huh?" he said, slurring his words. I looked up from the book I was pretending to read and smiled softly. "Patience, Ethan. Divorce is a big decision. I want to be sure." He scoffed. "Be sure all you want. It doesn't change the fact that I'm done with you." His words stung, but I refused to let him see my pain. Instead, I calmly replied, "Good night, Ethan," and turned off the lamp. Inside, though, my heart raced. Every insult, every smirk, every late night with Lily, it all fueled the fire inside me. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I got the chance I had been waiting for. Ethan left his laptop open in the study. Normally, he guarded it like a hawk, but maybe he was getting careless. Maybe he thought I was too broken to care anymore. Curiosity gnawed at me, so I sat down and opened it. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails, dozens of them. Between him and Lily. They weren't just talking about love and running away together. They were making plans, financial plans. Ethan had been moving money from our joint accounts into a private one under his name. He was preparing to leave me with nothing. That was it, the final straw. Not only was he betraying me as a husband, but he was also trying to rob me as a partner, as the mother of his children. He wanted to strip me of everything, while he built a new life with her. I closed the laptop slowly, my hands trembling, but not from fear this time. From fury. I whispered to myself, "You think you're clever, Ethan, but you just handed me the weapon I needed." From that day forward, I played my role flawlessly. Sweet, patient Sophia. The wife who still cooked, still smiled, still pretended not to know. But every smile hid a storm. Every calm word hid a plan. Because I knew something Ethan didn't. Very soon, he would wake up to a reality he couldn't escape. And when it happened, he would regret ever placing those divorce papers in my hands. I wasn't just preparing to fight for my marriage anymore. I was preparing to destroy Ethan's carefully built lies. And the first step of my plan was already in motion. The evidence I collected felt heavier than any weapon I'd ever held. Every receipt, every message, every transfer, it was all proof that Ethan was already building a life without me. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed momentum. I needed to strike where it would hurt the most. His pride, his image, his control. Mr. Harris told me the same thing he'd said the first day I sat in his office. File first. Don't let him set the terms. If you file on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct, you dictate the tempo. When he said, "File first," I felt the first real pulse of power in weeks. This was not revenge for revenge's sake. This was reclaiming what was mine. We prepared the papers quietly. While Ethan bragged about deals and made plans for his future, I signed, filed, and waited for the court to stamp the case. The day they did, Mr. Harris smiled a small, knowing smile. "Now we serve," he said. "We'll make sure he feels this where he can't pretend it's business as usual." I decided to serve Ethan at his office. He was always so public, so certain of himself in front of his colleagues. I wanted him to feel the humiliation where he nurtured his image. The plan was simple. Walk into his office, hand him the file, watch the face that had been so cold and arrogant crumble. On the morning of the serving, I woke early. I dressed in a navy dress, sharp, clean, and remarkable, and applied just enough makeup to hide the sleepless nights. I didn't want dramatic theatrics. I wanted the look that said, "I am composed. I am done being your victim." The lobby of Ethan's firm smelled like polished wood and cheap coffee. I signed in at reception, and the woman behind the desk eyed me with polite curiosity. "Mr. Miller is in a meeting," she said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I answered, my voice calm. "But it's urgent. Please let him know Sophia Miller is here. I felt ridiculous asking for the man who had once been my world, who had once adored me, to come into a foyer where other people could see him when he'd chosen to humiliate me. A minute later, Ethan walked in like he owned the place. Tailored suit, expensive watch, smile perfected for the boardroom. When he saw me, the smile faltered, but only for a second. His eyes hardened. "Sophia," he said, cool as ice. "What are you doing here?" I handed him the file. He took it as if it were a paper towel. He didn't open it. Instead, he flipped it onto his desk, glanced at the receptionist, and muttered, "Can you give us a moment?" Then he closed the door. Inside his office, all his arrogance dropped away, and what remained was furious, thinly veiled panic. "You filed?" he asked. I did. My voice was steady. He laughed then, a short, ugly sound. "You actually think you have anything here? You've been playing detective, Sophia. You're pathetic." "Read it," I said. "All of it. The emails, the transfers, the messages. You've been siphoning money and hiding it. Adultery, financial misconduct. You've been preparing to leave me with the kids and nothing." His jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." "Maybe you will," I answered, "but I won't be erased." For a few seconds, he stared at me like he wanted to strike. Then he composed himself, smoothing his tie. "This is a stunt," he said, voice cold. "You're trying to embarrass me in front of my colleagues." "Maybe you should have thought of that before you started living a double life," I replied. "I have kids, Ethan. I have a life. I won't be written out quietly." He stood up abruptly and walked toward me. The air between us convulsed with years of memory. Our first apartment, the late-night talks, the birth of our son, the way he held my hand the night our daughter was born. Memories can be cruel when they're used against you. "Do you know what you're doing?" he hissed. "This will destroy everything. The company, my reputation, our children." I cut him off. "Or it will free them from your hypocrisy." His hand trembled when it slammed against the desk. "You'll pay for this." At that moment, the door opened. A young woman I'd seen in photographs, Lily, stepped into the office, her presence like an extra gust of cold air. She was dressed casually but impeccably, the kind of look Ethan favored for his weekend dinners with her. She stopped, her eyes falling on me. For a second, she looked surprised. Then the surprise shifted into something else. Anger? Possessiveness? I couldn't tell. "Ethan?" she said, voice clipped. "Everything okay in here?" He smoothed his expression. "Sophia is just leaving." "No," I said, feeling the words gather in my throat like a storm. "I'm not leaving until you explain right now what you've done." Lily's gaze snapped to him. "Explain what? Who is she?" Her eyes were sharper than the camera photos I had seen. She seemed younger in person, but her face carried an arrogance I'd only seen in people who get what they want. Ethan sighed, and the sigh told me how little he respected my presence. "This is my personal matter," he said. "I don't think so," I said. "Not when it involves our children and our family money." Lily stepped forward then, closer than was necessary. Her perfume hit me, light, floral, confident. "Sophia," she said, sweet and dangerous. "I didn't know he was married." I thought. "You thought?" My laugh was hollow. "You didn't know? You were the one texting him. When is she finally signing the papers?" I watched the blood drain from her face, not because she was guilty, but because a crack had opened in the story Ethan had been carefully feeding her. "She's lying," Ethan snarled. "You're making things up." "Read the messages," I said again. "Open his laptop. Check the transfers. I have receipts with your name on them, hotel bookings, dinners. You and he have been planning this." Lily's mouth trembled. She looked at Ethan as if searching for truth, as if he could offer a simpler explanation. And in that look, I saw something that hurt worse than his betrayal. She believed him. Then Ethan did something I didn't expect. He moved toward me, closed the distance, put a hand on my arm, too hard, and in a voice dripping with contempt, he whispered, "You signed our death warrant the day you walked into my life and never kept your place. You think you can ruin me? You have no idea what I've already done." The receptionist cleared her throat in the outer office. I could feel eyes pressed against the glass. This was public. Everything I wanted it to be. My breath felt shallow, but my resolve was a blade. "Tell me," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. What have you done? He smiled. Not the intimate smile that used to make me believe in forever, but a predator's smile. You'll find out soon enough, Sophia. And when you do, you'll wish you'd signed those papers. He let go of my arm and folded his hands, calm as a man who believed he'd already won. And as I walked out of his office, my phone buzzed with one text that froze me cold. Check the account, now. When I stepped out of Ethan's office that day, I felt a strange mix of triumph and dread. I had thrown the first punch, but his parting words, "You'll wish you'd signed those papers," echoed like poison in my ears. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my lawyer, Mr. Harris. "Sophia, I just checked. The joint account is nearly empty. We need to meet, immediately." My heart stopped. The joint account wasn't just some rainy day fund. It was our savings, the money set aside for our children's education, the mortgage, our security. If Ethan had drained it, then his betrayal wasn't only about love. It was about power, control, and leaving me helpless. I drove straight to Mr. Harris's office, hands gripping the wool so tightly they ached. When I got there, he already had the bank statement spread across his desk. "Half the funds are gone," he said grimly, tapping the papers. "Transferred into an offshore account under his name. Sophia, this isn't just adultery. This is fraud. If he thinks he can drain you dry, he's sorely mistaken, but it complicates things." I stared at the numbers, my throat dry. "Can we get it back?" Mr. Harris leaned forward. "If we act quickly, yes. I'll file a motion to freeze his accounts. That will stop him from moving more money. But Sophia," he paused, his eyes narrowing, "we need to prepare for the fact that Ethan might fight dirty. Men like him, with money and ego, rarely go down quietly." I nodded, swallowing hard. I had known Ethan was arrogant, but this was cruelty. He wasn't just walking away. He wanted to destroy me in the process. That night, Ethan came home late. I was sitting in the living room, waiting. He didn't even flinch when he saw me. He just tossed his keys on the counter and smirked. "You went to a lawyer," he said. "Cute. You think you're clever." I kept my voice steady. "I know what you did with the accounts." He raised an eyebrow, pretending innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Of course you don't," I shot back. "But the court will. You think you're untouchable, Ethan, but you're not." For the first time, a flicker of anger broke through his smug mask. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sophia, you're playing a dangerous game. You want to fight me in court. Fine. But remember this, you'll never win. You'll be nothing. I'll make sure of it." I held his gaze, my heart pounding. "Then you don't know me at all." He laughed bitterly and walked past me, the scent of his cologne lingering like a taunt. The next few days were a blur of legal documents and whispered phone calls with Mr. Harris. We filed to freeze Ethan's accounts, and the court granted it temporarily until a hearing. It was a small victory, but it was enough to rattle him. I saw it in the way he stomped around the house, muttering under his breath. He didn't like losing control. But then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Is this Sophia Miller?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes." "Who's this?" "This is a friend," she said hesitantly. "I don't want to give my name, but I think you should know. Ethan isn't who you think he is. He's been lying to both of us." My stomach flipped. "What do you mean, both of us?" "I'm not Lily," the woman said quickly. "I'm someone else. Someone he's been seeing. I found out about Lily only recently. He told me you were out of the picture already, that you were just dragging your feet. He promised me a future, Sophia." Her voice cracked. But then I realized, I'm not the only one he's been saying that to. I gripped the phone, shaking. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "I can send you screenshots," she said. "Messages. Pictures. He's been juggling us both." And she did. Minutes later, images flooded my inbox. Ethan with her at a hotel. Ethan promising her vacations. Ethan calling her my escape. I stared at them in disbelief. This wasn't just an affair. This was a pattern. A sick, twisted game Ethan had been playing, stringing along multiple women while destroying the life we built together. For the first time, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt disgusted. That night, I confronted him. He was pouring himself a drink in the kitchen when I threw the phone on the counter, the pictures glaring up at him. His face didn't even change. He just shrugged. So, you wanted proof. There it is. You're disgusting, I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. Do you even realize what you've done? To me? To our children? To them? They knew what they were getting into, he said coldly. And so did you. You think you were special, Sophia? You were just convenient. Placeholder until I found something better. Those words nearly broke me. Nearly. But instead of collapsing, I found a strength I didn't know I had. You may think you've already won, I said, my voice low and sharp. But Ethan, you've underestimated me. And when this is over, you'll regret ever calling me a placeholder. The next morning, I met with Mr. Harris again. I showed him the new evidence, the screenshots, the texts. His eyes widened. This is bigger than we thought, he said. Sophia, he's not just a cheater. He's reckless. This pattern of behavior will destroy him in court. I leaned forward, my voice steady. Good. Because that's exactly what I want. A week later, the hearing for the frozen accounts took place. Ethan showed up in a designer suit, Lily clinging to his arm like a trophy. But I walked in with my lawyer and my evidence. When Ethan realized what I had, the financial records, the messages, the photos with not one but two women, his face finally cracked. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. The judge reviewed the evidence and ordered a full investigation into Ethan's finances. His accounts remained frozen. Lily's smug smile faltered as whispers filled the courtroom. I walked out that day feeling taller, stronger, like I had finally reclaimed a piece of myself. But just as I reached the courthouse steps, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. Just one line that made my blood run cold. Sophia, you don't know the full truth about Ethan. Meet me tonight if you want to see what he's really capable of. I stood there, clutching my phone, my heart pounding. Who was this person? And what could they possibly reveal that I didn't already know? I stared at the message on my phone, my hands trembling. Meet me tonight if you want to see what he's really capable of. For a moment, I thought it might be a trap. Maybe Ethan himself had arranged it. Or maybe Lily was trying to scare me. But something about the tone felt different, urgent, almost desperate. I couldn't ignore it. That evening, I told Mr. Harris about the message. He advised caution, suggested I take someone with me, but I knew if I hesitated, I might lose the chance to finally see the full truth. So I went, alone. The meeting place was a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Dim lighting, the faint hum of an old espresso machine. I walked in, scanning the room, until I spotted her, the woman who had called me before. She looked nervous, her fingers tapping restlessly against her coffee cup. When she saw me, she motioned quickly. Sophia, sit down. I slid into the booth across from her. What is this about? Why the cryptic message? She leaned in, her voice low. You think Ethan's betrayal is just about women and money? It's worse than that. He's been running side deals with investors, hiding assets, cooking the books. I work for one of his associates. That's how I found out. My eyes widened. Are you saying he's breaking the law? She nodded, pulling out a small folder from her bag. These are copies of documents I shouldn't even have. Fake contracts, shady transfers, offshore holdings. If the authorities see this, Ethan isn't just facing divorce, he's facing prison. I took the folder, my pulse racing. Everything suddenly made sense, his arrogance, his confidence, the way he drained our accounts without hesitation. Ethan wasn't just trying to ruin me. He was trying to protect himself before the walls came crashing down. But now, I had the detonator. The next day, I met with Mr. Harris again. When I laid the documents in front of him, his eyes lit up with shock. This is gold, he whispered. With this, we can not only secure your financial safety, Sophia, but also expose him. He'll lose everything. Part of me wanted to hesitate. This was the father of my children. But then I remembered his sneer, his words. You were just a placeholder. He had already destroyed our marriage, our trust, our home. Why should I protect him anymore? I took a deep breath. Do it. Whatever it takes. When Ethan was served the new set of legal papers, I was in the room. His face turned crimson as he scanned the accusations. Fraud, concealment of marital assets, Potential criminal charges pending investigation. He looked up at me, rage burning in his eyes. You did this. No, Ethan. I said calmly, my voice steadier than I ever thought it could be. You did this to yourself. I just stopped letting you hide. He slammed the papers onto the table, his composure finally shattering. You think you've won? You have no idea what you started, Sophia. Enough. My voice cut through his fury. For once, I wasn't afraid. I'm done letting you threaten me. I'm done letting you make me feel small. You wanted me to sign away my dignity, my future, but instead, you'll watch me take back everything you tried to steal. For the first time, Ethan didn't have a clever comeback. He just sat there, breathing heavily, cornered. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The investigation into Ethan's finances grew deeper. Lily vanished from the picture. Rumor had it she left him when she realized the money wasn't flowing anymore. The other woman never came forward publicly, but her evidence helped build the case. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild. My children stayed with me, their laughter slowly filling the empty spaces Ethan had left behind. I went back to work, reconnecting with colleagues who welcomed me warmly. Piece by piece, I started reclaiming my life. And Ethan? His empire crumbled. Clients pulled out, investors fled, and the whispers of fraud became headlines. By the time the divorce was finalized, the judge awarded me the house, custody, and a fair share of what remained of the assets. Ethan was left fighting not just me, but the law itself. The last time I saw him was outside the courthouse. He looked smaller somehow, his shoulders slumped, his eyes dark with exhaustion. You got what you wanted, he muttered, bitterness dripping from every word. I met his gaze steadily. No, Ethan. I didn't want this. I wanted a husband who loved me, who respected me, who kept his vows. But since you couldn't be that man, I had to be the woman who stood up for herself. He didn't reply. He just turned and walked away, swallowed by the crowd. Months later, I stood on my porch, watching my children play in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of gold and pink. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I had been forced into divorce papers, humiliated, betrayed, lied to. But instead of breaking, I had fought back. I had exposed him, defended myself, and shown my children what resilience looked like. And though Ethan thought he had ended my story, in truth, he had only given me a new beginning. Final line. He forced divorce papers on me, but in the end, my next move left him stunned, broken, and forgotten. While I finally rose, stronger than ever,